Calling the regular meeting of Monday, March 6, 2023 to order. Please rise for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Can I get approval of the agenda? I move that we approve the agenda. We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Approval of the minutes of the regular meeting of Tuesday, February 21st, 2023, and the special meeting on Wednesday, February 22nd, 2023.
So move. Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Nominations for recognition. I did have Stacy put on there for Kaya Miller for first place female state wrestling champion, and second place Hayden Barna for his second place in state wrestling. So we'll invite them to come to our next meeting. So is there any other recognitions? Certificates of recognitions. We have Norma Shelton for her years of service to the Newcastle and the Weston County Travel Commission Board. We wanted to give this to you last week, but weather wouldn't let us, huh?
Didn't know it was going to tonight either.
Yeah.
Snowing up on the hill.
How many years were you on board?
10 years.
10 years. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you for everything. Appreciate all the
Thank
help.
you for everything.
Swearing in police officer Kelly Moran. I'll have you repeat after me, okay? I, Kelly Moran,
I, Kelly Moran,
do solemnly swear and affirm
do solemnly swear and affirm
that I will support, obey, and defend the Constitution of the United States
that I will support, obey, and defend the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Wyoming,
and the Constitution of the State of Wyoming,
that I have not knowingly violated any law related to my election or appointment,
that I have not knowingly violated any law related to my election or appointment,
or cause it to be done by others,
or caused it to be done by others,
and that I will discharge the duties of my office with fidelity.
and that I will discharge the duties of my office with fidelity.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
Citizens' business in writing. Number 1, Julie Wetzel, appointed to the Travel Commission Board, Weston County Travel Commission Board. Did she meet with the Travel Commission?
I think she's attended some of their meetings. She
Is she here?
She said she brought in a letter.
So on February 7, 2023, to whom it may concern, I am interested in an opening of the Weston County Travel Commission Board. I work for the Newcastle Motors LTD here in Newcastle. Previously, I was employed by Pinnacle Bank. I have lived north of Newcastle for over 20 years. In the past, I served as president of the Newcastle Stingray swim team for several years, as well as a member at large for the Newcastle Area Chamber of Commerce. I also served on the board of directors for the Sweetwater Service and Improvement District. That service is the areas in which I reside. While employed with Pinnacle Bank, I was involved with the annual Festival of Trees. This event raised dollars for local charitable businesses here in Weston County. I believe I would be a good fit for the board and respectfully ask to be considered if there is an opening in the future. Sincerely, Julie Wetzel. And we do have that opening. And she did meet with
I believe
She's met two times with us.
Okay. So she has met with the board already, and it's the only letter that we've received. Anybody wants to-
I would make a motion that we appoint Julie Wetzel to the Weston County Travel Commission Board.
I second.
Okay, we have a motion and second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. You will let her know. Business in writing, number 2, Pokey's Smokehouse Barbecue Catering Permit. We did receive a letter from the city of Gillette. It states, I, Shay Lundell, Mayor, hereby authorize Pokey's Barbecue and Smokehouse to cater the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation Northeast Wyoming Chapter Ladies Event located at the Weston County Fairgrounds, 24 Fairgrounds Road, Newcastle, Wyoming, 82701 on March 11, 2023. And then they're asking for a 24-hour catering permit. And that's under and by virtue of the provision of Section 12-4-502 subsection B of the State of Wyoming Alcohol Beverage Control Laws. The City of Newcastle, County of Weston, State of Wyoming, in consideration of the sum of $20 paid by Pokey Smokehouse and Barbecue of the City of Newcastle and in the County of Weston, hereby license, permit, and authorizes Pokey Smokehouse and Barbecue to sell alcohol and malt beverages. That's correct. Because they're doing. In and upon the premises of Weston County Fairgrounds Event Center for an event more specifically described as follows. Rocky Mountain Elk Federation Banquet, March 11, 2023. This license for catering permit is for the term of 1 day only, beginning March 11, 2023 at 9 a.m. to March 12, 2023 at 9 a.m.
That's already passed.
And that is, no, March, yeah. And they're doing food. There is another license, or another catering permit for Cap and Bottle.
So this is just for food?
They're doing the food. Okay, so they're doing food and alcohol.
To my knowledge.
So
I guess I don't know about the food part, but I know that they needed the alcohol permit.
did they talk to you guys? Sorry, I'm going to ask.
We don't give permits for food.
I don't know why it's coming to us, especially if it's in the
They're
county.
doing alcohol. They must be providing alcohol.
Okay, has this come to you guys since you're here, can I ask? No, Commissioner,
We haven't received anything yet.
because this is at the fairgrounds, so this would be county.
Right.
See, I question that somebody said the event center.
The event
in
center
the
is
city.
listed.
You see the event centers in the city?
That's what they
Yes.
said.
Mm-hmm.
See, I learned something new every day. But it's in the plans. Okay.
So it was a permit for malt beverages and food?
Our side is just for the alcohol side, because we
Okay.
don't do anything with food.
Okay, then I move that we accept Pokey Smokehouse Barbecue's catering permit or for the malt beverages and alcohol.
A second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
On the letter that was sent from the mayor, I take it that letter is representing that they're in good standing then with the,
I would assume so. It does not state that, but I would assume so.
And they paid their permit
Yes,
fee.
they paid their $20 fee.
Okay. We got the 20.
Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. to number 3 in citizens' business and writing. Cap and bottle catering permit. 24-hour catering permit. That under and by virtue of the provisions of section 12-4-50T subsection B of the State of Wyoming Alcohol Beverage Control Laws, the City of Newcastle, County of Weston, State of Wyoming, in consideration of the sum of $20 paid by Tanya Christensen, doing business as Cap and Bottle of the City of Newcastle, County of Weston, hereby license, permits, and authorizes Tanya Christensen, owner of Cap and Bottle, to sell alcohol malt beverages in and upon the premises of Weston County Fairgrounds Event Center for an event more specifically described as follows: St. Patrick's Day Mixer. This license for catering permit is for the term of 1 day only, beginning March 17th, 2023 at 9 a.m. till March 18th, 2023 at 9 a.m.
Your Honor, I move that we approve the Cap and Bottles catering or alcohol catering.
I second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Citizens business number 4, Pines Motel sewer forgiveness. Greetings, City Council. I'm writing to you today to request your help with the sewer forgiveness program. My building's basement experienced a significant leak due to a hole in one of the water pipes. I was not aware of the leak for a long time, but after receiving a call from the City of Newcastle informing me that my water usage is out of control, I had to check all potential leaks and discovered one of the pipe. Bob came to check the meter, and both he and I discovered the leak in the basement. He advised me that since the water was only dripping into the basement rather than flowing through the sewer, I might be able to get a sewer forgiveness. I fixed the basement water pipe leaks on January 29th. Sincerely, Ayush Dalkal. Very sorry for botching that name. And this total forgiveness is for $246.95.
I move that we grant the sewer forgiveness for the Pines Motel.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and second. Any further discussion?
Are we sure that it went down the sewer, or didn't go down the sewer?
They had a sump pump and had a garden hose running over the drain between them and Fordyce's.
So we're just pumping it out of the basement down the drainage? Okay, thank you.
Actually, we may be getting another letter for our next meeting, because this isn't the most recent one. They were over, Bob was over there, it was just last week, or they called, and they had a full basement of water.
Oh my God.
Like, it was almost up to coming through the door.
Yeah, about 5 feet deep in there.
And this is not reflecting that.
So this is a prior one, and they might come to us for sewer forgiveness for this next one as well.
So I'm taking it's not the pipe that he fixed.
No.
There's no choice of building.
Yes,
swimming
yeah,
pool.
but, yeah.
Yeah, they're 2 different buildings.
Oh, okay.
The latest one is the cabin.
Okay. Wow. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. All right, citizens business verbal, Newcastle Chamber.
Please state your name. Henry. Okay. Didn't know if you
You gotta
heard.
read your name, Henry?
Yeah, I've got to read my name. It's gotten to that point today. This morning I woke up to a computer with a blue screen of death, and it's currently in surgery. So hopefully it'll be able to be successfully resuscitated. My name is Henry Nessel. I'm currently president of the Newcastle Area Chamber of Commerce. City Council. Madam Mayor, City Council, I thank you for your little bit of time this evening. I just want to bring you up to date on some of the activities the Chamber is preparing to do, and also preparing verbally with some of the ideas that are going to bring cost to the Chamber, because you all are one of our partners and benefactors, and so I want to make sure that we're completely transparent. Right now, membership has been a bit of an interesting thing. We're on a membership drive for renewals, and compared to last year's membership, we're a little under half of the renewals that have come in. I have spoken to some, and a couple of them I've spoken to have been gruff. Others have been polite and wanted to talk. One of them initially told me he was mad at me because of some of the activity that had occurred. And by the time the conversation was over, that person said I brought them to neutral. So hopefully I can continue to do this with other members of the Chamber and continue to get the Chamber to regrow some of the membership that's losing. Our Board of Directors, remember, we're volunteers working this completely volunteer. We do not have a staff employee at this time. We have submitted a plan I have submitted a plan to the board, and I'm waiting for their input in writing, and then we'll produce the plan for others to give input. Because it's an idea of many heads. This is our community chamber. It's not the Chamber of Commerce itself, but it belongs to all of us. Anybody that puts money into it. Events and activities. Thank you for approving the March 17 mixer alcohol permit. That is the Chamber of Commerce. That's the first one of the year. I'm trying to get those moving again. Our chamber meetings have moved. We're starting to do lunch meetings. Our next lunch meeting will be March 8th here at Curly Q's. Our last one was held at Grazer's, and we'll announce them as we are coming up with them and showing that get them going on the calendar. Currently, our meetings are not set because we're still developing and redeveloping after the events of last year. Many activities that we do sponsor that are going to create costs. We have the Easter activities that are coming up at the Newcastle Lodge. Those are currently in planning. Then there will be the fair parade, the fair itself, and pig wrestling. Those are good fundraisers, but they're also quite an expense. Our greatest expense is going to be our partnership with the fire department for July 4th. They've made a formal request to us because we are their sole funding source for $12,000 to pay for the fireworks. So we're going to be working fairly diligently, probably me, to make sure that we are able to come up with those funds. We'll also be working with local businesses, I hope, on RPM days. I understand that Chamber sponsored street fairs. And what about Sturgis activities? I'd like to sit down eventually and talk with you all about that and what can be done for Sturgis. And again, heading back toward Christmas with the lighted parade. Our greatest expense, a little over half of our budget that I've found, has been the Chamber employees. Currently, we do not have an employee. We're advertising for one. Personally, I am a bit concerned because our cash flow is insufficient this time to really support an employee. So we're doing it with volunteers of the board. And we're starting to develop a volunteer list to keep the Chamber building open. That is a priority that I want to get done, is to get the building open. We have a lot of printed material there that can be distributed. I just received more boxes today, but yet for the past several years of paperwork, I've been disposing of boxes that were never given out. And I don't want to do that. I want to make sure they get distributed. So the volunteer list is being coordinated, and there will be funds needed to reimburse volunteers for private vehicle mileage and if they attend activities to offset their costs. Some of our other fairly large expenses I'm finding in the budget is water, phone, power. As I read, it would have to be quite expensive. Maintenance, our building upkeep, repair, paint. It needs some updated lighting for the outside. There's some rot on the paneling on the side of the building, and that has to be replaced. The new door lock was donated by 2 board members, so we now use a combination lock to get us to keys. So if you need access, and one of us can be there quickly, if not, we can give you the code and you can give yourself access as long as, there's not much there, just paperwork. So we can give you that access. Another large expense is going to be office supplies and equipment. We need to do some technology updating. The computer at the chamber is fairly dated and its speed is less than adequate. And plus we need something that can help us with the record keeping and our software usage. Currently, one of our major programs, QuickBooks, is saying that it's no longer supported. And they do not want to sell us new software. They want to sell us a subscription. That's going to take hundreds of dollars of software and turn into thousands because of the way they handle these subscription systems. But they will no longer let you have it as a standalone.
License to steal.
I'm sorry. Okay. Ink, I was noticing in the budget, ink was a huge expense when you compare it to other office products. And of course, the standard pens, pencils, etc. Postage and shipping costs are also fairly high and getting higher. I noticed recently, out of my own business, that to ship a first-class package weighing, probably weighed 10 pounds, but it had to go first class, was almost $300. So postage is going up, and the ability to ship things is going up. Another great expense that we're going to have is advertising expenses. That was one thing that was brought out to me by one of the members that is not renewing, is the advertising that the chamber is doing has been mostly social media, and they want to see other advertising. I was hoping to get posters out this week, because as I explained when I started, my computer is currently in surgery. So as soon as it gets out of surgery, I hope to be able to start printing posters. My printer at my shop is an 11 by 17 printer, so I can do larger posters. Community economic development. The shop local first is a definite. We have to keep going and letting people know, shop here first before you move on to other places. That's what I personally try to do. Most folks do their major shopping in Rapid City or Gillette. We just need them to stop here first on their way out. Try to find it here. Let's see what else. And what can we offer a business and industry to come to Newcastle? Now here's where John caught me a few seconds ago. I'll stand to the side, it's easier. A meeting or so ago, John approached me about approaching Springfield Armory, and was asking the chamber approach Springfield Armory in Illinois to look at the potential of moving to Wyoming and Newcastle, Wyoming specifically. His reason for asking me that is because Illinois, at that time, had passed an assault weapons ban. And Springfield Armory, one of their major products is the AR-15. So, as I was thinking about it, and I started researching Springfield Armory, they are really entrenched in that small town in Illinois. So it would take a lot to get them to move. And it has to be, if we go to any industry that size of manufacturing, it has to be a partnership, not just the chamber going, but the city and the county. Because what incentives can we offer them to get them to leave a place where they've been for generations? And will they be moving their employees? Tremendous cost in that. When I worked for Northrop Grumman, just to look at a move like that, just the overhead expense, and it all comes out of overhead, was over $200,000 just to research it. So they need to have some incentives if they're going to even think about coming our way. So I will be asking you again in the very near future, and I want you all to think about it, please. Do you want that type of industry to come to Newcastle? And if so, what incentives are you willing to provide them? And then working with the county, be able to move forward and approach them as a team of chamber, city, and county. And that way we're stronger together. Overall, our processes are going to be slow because we're using volunteers. I have received your letter asking for a copy of a budget by April 3rd. You will have it. Our expenses are, I will give you an approximate budget showing what I believe and what the board believes is an adequate adequate presentation of what our costs should be for the upcoming year. Now, we have 2 different years we work with. One's a calendar year, or a tax year, January to December. But our fiscal year is July to June. So you'll get a budget showing the calendar year, even though our budget year is our fiscal year, is the July to June. Other than that, I just want to make sure that y'all and the chamber have an understanding of where we're going, and I have an understanding that I can relay to the board of your all's feelings and desires. You'll probably see me standing up here many times, making sure that we are transparent with you. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Definitely appreciate you.
It's turning out to be a lot of work, more than I thought.
Mayor, council member reports on Newcastle ambulance service. Come on up.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and Council. Appreciate you forgiving us for not being able to come over here 2 weeks ago in the blizzard, but we made it safe today. So, I'm Chris Beltz, the Director of Urgent and Emergent Services for Campbell County Health, which is EMS, the Emergency Department, and our Urgent Care or Walk-in Clinic.
And I'm Shauna Cohorn. I'm the EMS Manager for Campbell County Health, which represents Gillette, Newcastle, Sheridan, and Wright bases. So just starting out this evening, we have presented the packet to the mayor and council for you guys to review. And if you guys have any questions with the package that was presented, we'd be happy to answer anything. And we have copies if needed.
We sent it a couple weeks ago, so if it
Yeah,
didn't-
just, I don't.
Oh,
sure.
okay.
We brought
Yeah, we
copies.
brought copies.
Anybody need one?
Yeah, Joel, please.
Thank you.
No, I didn't. Thank you very much.
I probably have one.
You only
The
do.
filing cabinet over there.
No, we talked about this.
So if it is the first time some of or most of you have a chance to look at it, what we did was just kind of did a recap of our 2022 statistics, which is on the back of that first page. And you can obviously see the numbers in the graphs there, but just wanted to break it down into our total requests for service, which were 672. The total amounts of patient transports we did was 417. And then of that total 672 calls, we had 300 medicals, 199 traumas, and then we did kind of the rest of the breakdown that you can see there. So fairly wide variety of different types of services that we provided in 2022. The next page over is the call locations, and for you guys, you can see the majority of our calls are within the city limits of Newcastle. We also do respond regularly to the Upton area, for that portion of Weston County, a little bit in Osage, and then an even smaller amount in that Four Corners area down south. What's that? Or up north, sorry. Four Corners in Gillette is south of town, I apologize. Just our response time. So EMS is a lot like fire and law enforcement. We have standard response times that they like to see. We go off of NFPA 1720, which kind of dictates what response time should look like in everything from an urban area to suburban, rural, and remote. So an average en route time, which means when the dispatchers tell us there's a call to the time our ambulance wheels are turning, is about 2 minutes and 18 seconds. And it's a little bit faster in the daytime when everyone's awake and dressed and ready to go. It slows down a little bit at night and they gotta wake up, get dressed, get out to the trucks. But the average is what you see there. Our response time, average response time to the scene is 9 minutes. So once we're en route to when we check in at the call location is 9.1 minutes. And that is for the calls in all of the areas. So it includes everything out in the county. Our on-duty staff, so we do staff this base 24/7, 365 with an ALS crew. They responded to 547 of the 672 calls, did 344 transports, and then we did have to utilize our off-duty staff 23 times with 16 transports. And then you'll note the next line down is what we categorize as Campbell County responses, and that's where we would actually bring over an ambulance from one of our bases, either in Gillette or Wright. We reposition them here to respond to calls. And that typically is when the crew here has to either go to a call way out in the county that they're going to be committed to for a long time, or if they have to do a transfer, say to Rapid Casper, Denver. Because of our contract with you guys, we don't leave the city without an ambulance to respond to a call, so we always reposition one of those resources from Campbell County to here. So we did that 102 times, and they did 57 transports while they were over here. So talked a little bit about the staffing. The nice thing is smaller community, harder time to recruit, full-time staff to work here. If you can imagine, there's not a lot of paramedics and EMTs walking the streets of Newcastle looking for a job, but we're pretty comfortable in the system that we've built, that we can utilize staff from all of our bases and resources from all of our bases to not only come over here, but to go elsewhere as needed. And so we really manage our system and our resources based on wherever the need is. That's where we kind of shift those resources to. And then the rest of the packet is kind of our finances. We certainly want to be open and transparent with you guys about our financial picture over here. So you can see in fiscal year 22, which is obviously July 1st of 2021 to June 30th of 2022. Our gross revenue, which is essentially what we billed out for, was $1.3 million. The net service revenue, which is the money we collect back, is $956, so about 71%, which is actually really high. Healthcare in general averages about a 40 to 50% reimbursement rate after insurances and all that stuff take into effect. So we have a pretty good collection rate over here. Our total operating expenses just under that at $953. So our total net income was $2,500. Year to date for 2023, this was through the end of January. Our February finances won't be available until the middle of this month, but pretty similar picture. We're actually, because we've had a little bit more calls so far, we're projecting that we'll make a little bit more money year to date, but right now we're at $4,700 with a projection of $8,000 by June 30th. As you can imagine, $8,000 isn't much of a buffer, and so one slow month or some reimbursements that don't come in can chew that up pretty quick. Any questions so far? Any points of clarification? Okay. Next thing we want to get into is just some of the initiatives and things that are not only happening within our system, but around the state. You may have heard some of these. But the big one is the regionalization project. So the governor's office, the Department of Health, and then members of the Wyoming EMS Association put together a task force a little over a year ago to really start trying to figure out why ambulance services in the state of Wyoming are struggling. And they're struggling from a financial standpoint, a staffing standpoint, equipment standpoint. And it's kind of probably the story that you've heard is, as EMS agencies transition from mostly volunteer and losing that ability to recruit and retain volunteers, how do we still provide services with staff that are employed? And that's happening in Wyoming, it's happening across the country. Really no one is immune from a lack of volunteerism, if you will, to how do we still provide services that are reliable and sustainable with employed staff. And so out of that regionalization, or excuse me, out of that task force, they looked a lot at regionalization, which essentially, if there's a few healthy, sustainable ambulance services that exist around the state, how can they help absorb services in other areas that are shutting down? And so I kind of think of an example close to home would be Osage. Osage Ambulance did not renew their business license last year, so they haven't had a licensed ambulance service since January of 2022. So really, whoever's left, if you will, has to kind of absorb that because somebody needs to go to a call when 911 is. And so what we realized is services like ours and others across the state is when someone shuts their doors, because EMS is not a mandated service like fire and law enforcement is, it's really no one's responsibility and no one is obligated by statute to provide EMS services. That's one thing they want to work on addressing. But the problem is if all of a sudden the state says, hey, City of Newcastle, you have to provide ambulance service, where do you get money? Where do you get staff? Where do you get resources? You can't just pick it up at the drop of a hat. So that task force said, how can we utilize existing services, economies of scale to really make sure that ambulance service across the state are sustainable? And so we have organically, if you will, started doing that. We've tried to reach out to communities that we know are struggling or communities that are struggling are reaching out to us and saying, hey, what can you do to help us out? That's really kind of how we landed here in Newcastle 2 years ago or 2.5 years ago is when Mr. Hespy decided he wanted to retire. It's kind of like, who's going to pick up, the pieces? And we certainly wanted to make sure that happened. It was a good opportunity for us. We feel it's a good opportunity for the citizens in the city and the county, and so we purchased that, and that's how we ended up here. But that regionalization project really opened up the doors for some federal funds through the Department of Health to say, okay, if you're the agency that's going to regionalize in an area, then we want to help support that. And so we did receive initial funding notice that we'll get approximately $3.8 million for everything from training to equipment to ambulances. What else am I forgetting?
It's primarily education focused too. So the goal is to be able to train and bring on staff and be able to retain staff within the system too. So that will be a huge focus, and that's a good bulk of the grant as well, so that we can have sustainability within the systems to be able to provide the services.
Yeah, that goal of the education is to take a city like Newcastle where there's not a lot of people looking for EMS work to training a bunch of people that now we can say, hey, we have a service we can put you to work in. And that may be on a full-time basis, maybe on a part-time basis, or even like a hybrid of a call, paid on call, something like that. But we really want to get younger folks, like high school seniors, people that age, hey, here's a good career to get into, here's the training you need. And now since you live in Newcastle or Moorcroft or Upton, we'd like you to stay home and we can give you a good job that pays a living wage, has health benefits, all that kind of stuff, so you don't have to leave to try to find that kind of opportunity. Any questions on that regionalization project? There's obviously a lot more to it, but I'm trying to be respectful of your time. The next one is Wyoming Regional EMS, and this joint venture between Campbell County Health and Sheridan Memorial Hospital, and this came out of a similar situation where the existing ambulance provider in Sheridan, their contract was not renewed by the city, and the hospital was looking for someone to provide inter-facility transport, so from Sheridan's hospital to the surrounding hospitals in the state and Montana. And so they called us and said, hey, our current provider can't do that. Is there something you can do to help? We engaged with them, and initially it was just, you call us if you need us. We'll send a truck from Gillette, take us an hour and a half to get there, but we'll go to the hospital, pick up a patient, and we'll take them to Billings if they need. That relationship really kind of matured into us together starting this LLC to say, how can the communities of Sheridan, Gillette, and the counties of Sheridan and Campbell, how can we use our collective resources to provide ambulance services in Sheridan County, but also anywhere else that's needed. And so through this last summer, from about June till September, we put that joint venture together. We, as the EMS operators with the experience and knowledge, provide sort of the operational knowledge to that, and then we obviously get the funding and other resources from both of those entities. So it's worked out really well. We've been live in Sheridan as the EMS provider since November 28th, I believe it was, or 18th? 19th. And it's worked really well. And again, kind of like the system we have here is Sheridan bumps over to help Gillette, Gillette bumps over to help Sheridan, and then of course our resources centrally located in Campbell County can go either place. And what we see is sometimes Sheridan is just totally getting overwhelmed with calls. Gillette might be a little slower, so we'll bump a resource over. Same with Newcastle. There's days Newcastle goes crazy, so we'll bump the truck over from Wright or the truck over from Gillette to help cover the high call lines here. But that regionalization, and along with this Wyoming Regional EMS, really seems to be working effectively, in that not every single community has to try to provide an ambulance service and absorb the costs and the management and all of the things that come with that, in particular billing and revenue collection. So we think it's working well, and just wanted to throw that out there as an idea for you guys to consider in the future. Certainly we will always be here as long as you'll have us as Campbell County Health EMS. But if you're interested in looking at joining that partnership, having a seat at the table as far as how that's all run, we certainly would invite you to engage Wyoming Regional EMS. It'll still be us providing the ambulance service, but there may be ways to save costs and or increase service capabilities at some point. So I will say from the Wyoming Regional EMS Board standpoint, they didn't want to really do that this year for this coming fiscal year, because we just got started, and they really want to kind of perfect the operations that we have going before taking on additional services that we just don't want to grow too fast or not come in and sell you promises that they can't keep. So just something to keep in mind. And then last but not least, if you were involved or listened to any of the legislation stuff, I think somewhat of an exciting law that was just passed and signed by the governor was the EMS district bill, which allows really an EMS district to be formed within a county by the constituents. And two ways it can be ran is either the county can form the district as long as the voters approve it, and then they can appoint a board, or the voters can approve the formation of the district and then elect board members to it. But much like fire districts worked around the state, this is essentially the same idea. There would be a tax levy to fund that, and if you read in there, basically you can assess up to 2 mills, and then with voter and the county commissioners, you can assess an additional 2 mills, so potentially up to 4 mills. I think the most exciting part about this is, from an EMS standpoint, it gives funding availability. I know most voters are probably not excited about levying another tax against themselves, but if the situation got to the point where we either need money or we don't have an ambulance service, I think this is an option for the voters and elected officials to at least consider as an option. Again, regardless of an EMS district in Weston County or not, we would like to continue to contract with you guys and the county commissioners to provide service over here. But I think this potentially provides a funding mechanism for you guys to utilize it to contract with us or anybody else as time goes on. And then with that, the last thing we did ask is we do have a funding request of $110,000 for this coming fiscal year, which is a $10,000 increase. With inflation, rising costs, all the things I'm sure you've experienced, and looking at our finances, we're right at that break-even point. And again, we recognize that 1 or 2 slow months or more increases in costs, we're going to really start jeopardizing that break-even point. And that really is our goal, is to just be sustainable financially here. It's not to make hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars. We want to just make sure costs are covered, and we're always at that break-even point, or potentially a little bit above. If we were to actually make that $8,000 this year. But that would be our request of you, is to consider an increase of $10,000 for fiscal year 23. Yep. So, any questions? I know it's a lot of information. I apologize.
We appreciate you coming. The reason that we asked for you guys to come is we've had a lot of citizens come to us, and obviously, you hear more concerns than we do positives. So we just have some questions for you, so I don't know if you want to start.
Okay. I got a few.
What's that?
I got a few.
Sure.
All right, going through the numbers, and then kind of broke them down a little bit because I had some question on if that 672 is actually in the city for Newcastle, and kind of breaking these down in the Newcastle city limits up in Osage areas. I don't know how those numbers kind of cross over what we get for calls into PD to kind of cross-reference them. The other one goes into the next page on where it says staffing, where your support crew for 2 people, and the crew is primarily staffed and at least 1 paramedic. The staffing, I believe, when you took over, was going to be the same as what Roger was providing at the time. We had 4 buses here when Roger was here. Now I understand we're down to only 1 bus most of the time. And I've been getting complaints and things come back in from the hospital now and then with only 1 bus being here. The delay in transfers from the hospital due to waiting for crews to come in from Wright or Gillette to come in here and cover. There's also been some incidences in here. The quote that I wrote down here that you just said tonight was, "We don't leave Newcastle without an ambulance." That has been not the case in several cases. There have been several times in the last few months that an ambulance has been called out up north. And then there's been a call just on the eastern side of Newcastle that there's only been 1 person at the bay. There has been an ambulance on the way from Gillette when this other call came in, but they were only 3 miles outside of Moorcroft on their way here. So the coverage for Newcastle and then the money that we've been paying for a service that we thought we was going to kind of maintain really hasn't been maintained in my mind, and the feedback I've been getting. And then looking at some of the calls in the past several months, I just started pulling up the calls and started looking at some of these when it was being brought to my attention. And seeing where there was many times of only 1 ambulance staffed, because they don't have a second crew here to staff. They're relying on the circulation of Wright and Gillette to backfill.
Correct. So we do only have 1 ambulance staffed here 24/7. That is correct. That's all we can afford to staff here. So we have 2 ambulances at the bay here at all times. We do not have them staffed. We do not staff anything other than 1 ambulance 24/7. There's 3 other staff that live in the city of Newcastle besides, or 4. Four people that live in the city of Newcastle. So if any of those individuals are working, that cuts down to potentially 3 other people. If any of them are working on any of our other outlying bases, that might cut down to 2 people. If any of them are unavailable to respond to a call, that cuts down to no people. So we don't have any people that actually live here. So the other thing that we did include was, if you look at the page for backup duty and the coverage and the cost of filling backup costs,
Right above, where it says
we're right above FY22. So the cost for us to actually backfill a backup crew was $10,702 in 2022. We had to reduce that because, as you could see, we were going to take an extreme loss in our finance in order to do that. So we do not backfill and do not have crews over here to backfill. We do push trucks over here from Gillette as soon as calls go out, especially into the county, as I stated. We push, as Chris stated, we pull them from either Wright or Gillette and pull resources over here if there's going to be longer calls. As far as the hospital goes, we don't have a contract with the hospital to provide interfacility transfers. We do provide interfacility transfers. We've provided 118 interfacility transfers in the last year. Since January 1 of this year, we had 17 interfacility transfer requests. We had 5 interfacility transfer delays, and we had to turn down 2 interfacility transfers total. We are not turning down transfers regularly. Our transfer data from the year before, I would have to get you, but it's similar to that. When we do send a transfer out, they might have to wait for approximately 30 minutes. The average wait time for an interfacility transfer, if you were to call a flight in or call in an ambulance, is 30 to 60 minutes generally at the least. The most they're going to wait is 30 to 45 minutes for the right crew. So
It really is. So when we started in July 1, we brought on everyone that was hired on with the previous service, and that was only 5 people. One of them has since moved to New Mexico, so we were down to 4. And we have actively tried to recruit students, because there's, again, not people with licenses, into the classes that we do teach. And we just, we're not seeing them, especially from the Newcastle area that live and work here, that we can say, hey, when you're off of your primary job, can you be on call for us? That is a focus of the regionalization project, just to increase those numbers with that funding that we have allocated for education. But recruitment in a small community is really tough. And I will say when we started here, we thought we were going to have 20 on our rosters, and the first meeting we had, it was down to 5. So that was an eye-opener for us. And it just, staff is hard, recruitment's hard. Especially getting people to work a full-time job, let's say at one of the mines, and then on their days off be on call for us. We fortunately have 3 people that will provide on call as much as they can, but it's not a 24/7, 365 thing. We don't have people that can be on call that much for us. Especially going out the door, almost 700 times a year, that constantly would be in the base and really don't have a lot of downtime on their days off. But that's a vulnerability of ours that I'm sharing with you, is recruitment of staff willing to bolster our numbers here so we can provide more reliable on-call coverage without having to bring a truck up from right over from Gillette. That's a challenge. It's a major challenge for us. And I would say that's what the state is experiencing, that's what the nation is experiencing, is that challenge in recruiting licensed EMS providers to especially function on an on-call basis or even a part-time basis.
Are the ones that are working somewhere else and on their days off, are they volunteers?
So we don't have,
we have no volunteers.
yeah, we don't have volunteers. We have what we call PRN, or call when needed. When they work, they're getting paid an hourly wage. No one truly volunteered. Everyone gets a wage, and it's the same wage as a full-time employee makes. So if you're PRN and I'm full-time, you and I will make the same wage if our license level is the same as far as per hour goes.
So is that why we have more life flights now than we ever had before? Because there's no bus here?
I guess I can't speak historically for how many transfers out of here have gone by Life Flight. I don't know that it's more than ever before. Honestly, I can't speak to that. I know our numbers, but I don't have access to the data to say here's what was done 5 years ago, 10 years ago. So, and to that point, we have, everywhere that we operate, when there are certain types of calls that come out, so let's say it's a head-on collision at Four Corners, we will automatically launch Life Flight from Rapid City before we ever get on scene. And the reason we do that is, knowing the capabilities of this hospital, it sometimes doesn't make sense to bring a trauma patient with major injuries to here as a pit stop to then ultimately have to go to Rapid to definitive care. We'd rather that patient go from the scene to definitive care. I don't know what was done with the previous service, but I would say it's proactive on our part. If it sounds bad, we're going to get all the resources coming, and then we cancel and modify the response based on what we actually see when we get there, instead of reacting to it once we're on scene. So.
No, my question would be, if you're wanting the same and an increase of 10,000, and the services we've seen and dropped on there, what do you feel that you're gonna provide or try to do to increase a little bit more of the service than what we have? Or are we gonna just fall back into status quo of, we only have one bus and you have to wait for another bus to cover from the other locations? It was shocking to hear that we went from 4 to just 1 in the last couple of years.
We don't, we have 2 ambulances here. We do not have 1 ambulance.
And
So
those
there's 1 staffed, there's 2 trucks and he didn't have 4 trucks staffed though. I mean, he had volunteers that were responding to the base.
Right, and there's been many times that all 4 of them were out. I ran with Roger.
Sure. Yeah, I will say.
I was also an EMT on the Newcastle ambulance service. And I was a full-time EMT for the Newcastle ambulance service. And it's just, I was super concerned when we were transferring, because I didn't know if we were even going to have an ambulance service for a little while in Newcastle, and I thought that was terrifying. So being down to 1 staffed ambulance and then having to wait for someone to respond from Wright or Campbell County, even though we have 2 ambulances here, like you said, only 1 of them being staffed, is just alarming to me. And we were under the impression that when we, granted the subsidy to you guys' ambulance service, that we were still going to be receiving the same sort of service that we were getting from Roger Hespy. And it doesn't seem like we are.
Sure.
I mean, and we want to serve our constituents the best way that we can. So it's kind of caused a little bit of a bitter taste in our mouth, well, mine personally, because, like I said, we just want to see our citizens served. So, and then word on the street, talking with constituents, they're talking about, when I spoke to personnel at the hospital, that Life Flight is being utilized more, which causes our citizens to incur a greater cost. Anytime that bird goes in the air, we're talking tens of thousands of dollars instead of what it would be to ride a regular ambulance. So I don't know, personally, I just have a few misgivings.
Sure.
But I mean, I understand that it's a business, but you're also asking us to increase your subsidy by $10,000.
I had, we looked back at the first day that you guys came and introduced yourselves, and we asked I asked if you guys were depending on that $100,000, and you told us no. I believe your words it would be nice, but no, you weren't. And now you're asking for more. So I'm a little confused there, as well as the services are different than what Roger did provide, and I question him getting $100,000 as well. I guess the question I have there is what changed there? I mean, I know cost has gone up. It's gone up for everybody, but going from not depending on our $100,000 to depending on it to increasing it.
So I may have misspoke if I said we weren't dependent on your $100,000. When we came and presented to you, I knew we were committed at that time to purchasing the service. We had done a financial pro forma on it and thought if all of the call volumes and transports and things were exactly the same, we could make a sustainable service here. Again, not making lots of money, but that pro forma did include the $100,000 because we used essentially Mr. Hespy's data to populate our own since we hadn't been here. So I apologize if I misspoke and said not dependent on it, but I think what I meant to say was no matter what, if you guys, because I think we met fairly late in our budget planning cycle, is if you don't give it to us, like we're committed, we're going to be here anyway. assuming we might have to operate at a loss that first year. So I think that's what I intended to say, and I apologize if it didn't come across that way. And then to the same level of service, I don't want to sit up here and make excuses. I don't want to say that, you know, things are drastically different than when Roger did it compared to us, but I do think that's the trend that was facing the service prior to us taking over. And 2 more years farther down the line, we're just seeing more of the lack of staffing. And so when we took over, there was 5 left. We lost 1, we replaced it. So we still have 4 of the original 5, if you will, but that's it. And it's not like we're interviewing people here and turning them down. We just don't even have interested candidates. Some of the advantages that Roger had is because he was a private business, he could say, I need you to drive my ambulance because this patient's really sick or I'm one short staff. So you might go to the fire department and say, can one of you drive for me, or a nurse at the hospital? Can you drive for me, or can you take care of the patient while I drive? And we can't do that because of our insurance requirements. Every employee that's in an ambulance, operating on it, driving it, has to be an employee, has to be covered by insurance, both vehicle, collision, and as well as malpractice. And so that limits our staff. Because the hospital said, hey, can we send someone with you? I wish you could, but insurance just won't allow it. Licensing won't allow it. And so we struggle to take advantage of the same opportunities from a staffing standpoint as maybe he did. And then to the licensed providers on the fire department, we did meet with the fire department initially when we first took over, essentially made a presentation and encouraged anyone who was interested to apply to come work for us. I don't know the exact reasons why, but we had one. Mr. Kinney is the only one, Mr. Kinney, and he does work for us. But he was the only one that came over. So again, staffing is a huge vulnerability for us. This regionalization grant, that education piece is huge, and it's region-wide. We're trying to reach as many people as we can so that those numbers can be increased, not only in Weston County, but even Upton and Osage and Moorcroft. It's just, how can we try to, in Northeast Wyoming, really stabilize EMS services from a financial and staffing standpoint.
So Roger used to advertise and put on EMS classes, EMT classes at the Bay. Are you guys still trying to recruit like that and trying to get people actively involved?
We've put on an EMT, an AEMT, and currently doing an IEMT class.
So is there people attending the class? I mean, is there any hope that...
We have quite a few people in the classes, and we have,
But they're not.
They're not from here.
Oh, where are they coming from?
Gillette.
Okay, so people from Gillette are driving over here to do...
No, they're not here. They're over in Campbell County.
Oh, so you guys are doing the classes in Campbell County?
We have, when we initially, we did advertise a class to potentially do over here. When did George do it?
21.
And he was going to do one in Upton, actually. And he had nobody sign up, so we ended up moving it back to Gillette.
Okay.
And the nice thing is our classes now are taught virtually with in-person attendance on Saturdays. And so anybody from anywhere can attend the class.
To do practical type stuff
So
in
you can
person?
do the classroom virtually, and then you just have to, because we have people actually traveling from other areas to do the classes. This I class, Casper and Sheridan to do the I class that travel just for the sales portion.
Well, I do want to make sure you guys know we appreciate the level of care that you guys are giving. I haven't had anyone who was picked up by the ambulance that has complained in any way, shape, or form. So I do want to make that clear. We just had questions that people are bringing to us that we can't answer without talking to you guys. So, but thank you for answering those for us.
And if it's appropriate, anytime someone approaches you with a complaint or grievance or question, certainly if it's appropriate, forward it to Shauna or myself, and whether that's an email response, a phone call, or even a trip over here if we need to. We're certainly willing to do that. Because I don't want anyone doubting the service. I don't want anyone thinking, oh, if I call 911, no one's coming. I want to not only put them at ease with here's what we're doing, but also be frank with them and let them be frank with us if we fail them at any step of the way. So.
And we do, I mean, we are very happy to provide the services over here. And we do work our very best to get the services provided over here in the very best way, similar to all of the rural areas that are struggling right now. We're providing the services in Upton to that area without, them being able to provide the services in their own community, kind of similar. We're having to supplement in Moorcroft. And those are areas that are struggling. It's us just trying to reach out to these small communities that are not able to do it for themselves, and that is truly just us doing that because we know we have to, because no one else is going to. But at the end of the day, we do enjoy being over here. The crews enjoy being over here, and we're very happy to be providing the service. So.
I guess one more question. I don't know if you asked there or not. I know you brought up you guys are now taking over Sheridan. With the way that your buses move around to help cover, do you have a plan that coverage will still be everywhere then? Or
So we have trucks already in Sheridan, and they've been over there, and I guess we have staffing and stuff already assigned to that area. So I guess to your point, we don't, I will say we do not supplement out of Gillette to Sheridan very often because of the distance especially. We're primarily moving everything over here. We're backfilling over here, especially from Wright, pretty regularly. In fact, we leave Wright uncovered more often than we leave. I mean, we don't leave anywhere else uncovered. We leave Wright uncovered. And I say that on this, but that's because we don't have a formal contract with Wright. That's our only area we don't have anything formally with. So that's the area that we do leave uncovered to come cover this community. So.
You can imagine Sheridan versus Gillette and Newcastle. When we first opened up positions there, we had 30-some applicants. And then we did a round of hiring, had some more positions open, and got 20-something. It's just, it really is community dependent. People want to live at the base of the Bighorns and work as EMTs and go do fun stuff on their days off. Sheridan is not a problem to hire in. Gillette is a little bit harder, but Newcastle is the hardest part. And we don't even recruit to try to hire people that live in Wright, because it's been a no-go for us for 10 years. Is people, as soon as, if we say you have to live in Wright to work at this place, they're out. And so we just say, come work for Campbell County Health. You're going to rotate between these base locations. We're not going to force you to live in a certain community because of the ability to recruit. We've recruited employees from Casper, Cheyenne, Buffalo, South Dakota, Belle Fourche, Spearfish. People drive over to work here and then they drive home. And that's here, Gillette, and Wright. Sheridan, not a problem. Everybody wants to live and work in Sheridan. So. Probably because they have a neat gun manufacturer there. But again, that's our biggest vulnerability. We'll always be open and honest with you on that and everything else, but staffing it's a struggle. So.
Any other questions for them?
I don't think so.
Okay. Well, we
Thank you
really
for coming.
appreciate your time.
You're welcome. Thank you. Appreciate it. Yep. And if anything else comes up, contact one of us. Our information's on that back page.
Thank you very much.
Have a safe trip back.
We will, thank you.
Tree board updates.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The city arborist put in for some grants. I just want to make you guys aware to replace some of the placards around the trees in the arboretum and around town. They're getting kind of weathered and old, and so there was a pot of money that Travis put in for a grant to get some of those replaced. And then they're gonna incorporate, like QR codes so you can take pictures of them and then get information about the trees, and it's kind of neat. I think it might even work in conjunction with the GIS. So then he also put in for another small grant to get some replacement trees. I believe he was working with one of our board members that's on the Natural Resource District to get some more just replacement trees, small trees. And then the last piece was we kind of worked together as a board to come up with a design for the area that's like right directly to the side of the building over here with the handrail that goes between the law enforcement complex and City Hall. So we did a little design. I wanted to have a copy of that furnished for everyone, but I don't know that I got with Stacy and got those printed off. So anyway, we were just wanting to do some landscaping over on the other side of the building. It was mostly going to be done by the arborist and in conjunction with some of the board members to plant some trees and just make it look nice. That's the City Hall. Hide the irrigation boxes and the garbage cans and just kind of dress it up a little bit. So we just wanted to know if we were going to be able to proceed with that.
Thank you. Thank you for making it pretty.
Yeah. Well, it hasn't happened yet, but thank you for thanking us.
Well, thank you for wanting to make it pretty.
Old business number 1, chapter 56, permit resolution. This would be resolution number 4, series 2023. Resolution to approve the taking of deer within the city limits of Newcastle as provided under Wyoming Statute 23-1-302 A, B, III, and XXII, and as provided under Chapter 56 of the Wyoming Game and Fish Regulation. Whereas the city of Newcastle wishes to approve and indicate the permit under the Wyoming Statute 23-1-302 A, B, III, and XXII, whereas the city of Newcastle has complied with the requirements of the permit promulgated under Chapter 56 of the Wyoming Game and Fish Regulation, whereas pursuant to Wyoming Statute 15-1-103, the city of Newcastle has authority to apply for the Chapter 56 permit. Now therefore be it resolved by the governing body of the city of Newcastle, Wyoming, that the Chapter 56 permit for taking of deer within the city limits be adopted by this council and effectuated as per the requirements of Chapter 56 permit.
Madam Mayor, I make a motion that we approve resolution number 4, series 2023.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Passed and dated this 6th day of March 2023. Old business number 2, Heritage Park Project, locating funds and grants. The grant that was applied for was denied. And I was asked by Dave Ehlers if it was okay for him to keep locating funds and grants. I told him I didn't think there was a problem, but I would talk to the council.
I don't have a problem.
No, we'd like to see
We
him to
wanted
continue
to,
to do his
yeah.
good work.
Absolutely.
So we'll let him know that.
I think when it came out
We
of
just
this
need to
deal,
make sure that we're all on the same page with grants that we're going down to the state with, that whatever you're getting. Because I've also gotten information back from the state that if we went down there in two different entities trying to go for grants, none of our grants would have gotten passed.
I think Greg's gonna talk about that a little bit, in
That-
this area. But I did tell
Councilman
him,
Stevenson, that is correct. Cheyenne, BOPU, and the city of Cheyenne both had grants they applied for. This BOPU couldn't actually apply for one, so they went through the city of Cheyenne. I'm not sure either one of them were actually funded. They combined Park County, a grant with Park County, and a grant with the city of Cody, and only funded one of the projects because both of them benefited basically the city of Cody, is what the members felt. So yes, going down as a unified group is definitely a better plan than doing
So did we know that before? I mean, no, we didn't. So, I mean, Greg's learned a lot this last week. So we just have to go from that, but we didn't know that.
Right.
well, we'll have Mr. Ehlers come to us before, letting us know what grants he found.
And I did find out some more information about some grants that we could possibly put in for the Heritage Park itself.
Okay.
So I talked with a couple people down there, they gave us some suggestions, so
So maybe Dave needs to talk to you.
that would probably be good. We can work on it together.
Well, I think we should let Dave know that as long as we know what's going on, that he can go forward.
Okay, I'll give him a call tomorrow.
Okay.
Department head report, City Attorney Dublin Hughes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think with the Chapter 56 resolution, I don't think I have anything to report.
Any questions for City Attorney?
do you know how much money, if we started one of those districts like we were talking about, how much money can be raised by a mill or 2 mills?
I don't, off the top of my head.
Okay.
City Clerk Treasurer.
I just wanted some clarification on the charges for dispatch services. We had refigured both November and December, and those charges were put on the desk prior to the meeting with the county. We figured November to be at $10,817.67 and December to be at $10,269.74. I just wanted clarification from the council that that is what the clerks should charge and send out to the county.
Maybe work with her on the corrections.
Work with the city, yes.
Anybody have anything else?
Okay. And I'm going to take that as that is what the council has, they're aware that that is what is being sent out. And then real quick too, we do have a $9,000 check sitting in the safe at the city office. And that was supposed to be for November and December dispatch services at $4,500 each for each month. Dublin, am I correct in understanding that if we cash that check or process that check, is that us agreeing to the $4,500 a month?
Not necessarily, but it could be perceived as such. So, be something called an accord and satisfaction, basically. So, if we're wanting to stay basically on the $10,000 for each month, it would be best not to cash it as such. But I mean, obviously things have changed since the last meeting, so it's up to the council.
Okay. Thank you. My next item is the renewal for health insurance for the city employees. And of course, it has gone up some.
What else is there?
And these rates, of course, will start as of July 1st, once we get into the new budget year.
Stacy, on this, do we pay for this, right? For
The city pays 100% of the premium.
Do we have any feedback from them? Do you guys like this?
Yeah,
Yes.
I did.
Well, you know, I would.
It helps with retainage of employees. They
Very
have pretty good pay.
Having been a prior employee, that's why a lot of people work at the city, is because of the good benefit that we offer.
That's a good one. Okay, I just didn't know.
Yes, it's a very much appreciated benefit.
It's a good incentive.
I make a motion that we want to accept this contract. Is that what
The new rates.
the new rates
I
for
second.
this next year?
Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign.
And then I had also sent out a letter outlining our budget process, and the department heads have been given the initial sheets to get back to me. The one thing we had scheduled April 10th or tentatively scheduled as the workshop. Donnie, you're gonna be gone and possibly back. Would it be better to try to schedule that for Tuesday, the 11th?
Yeah, because we all need to be here.
Yeah, depending on how flights are, I wouldn't depend on me being able to get back in time with the way air flights are right now.
So we'll change that to the 11th. Is that okay with
So
everybody?
just this.
Yes. I think we did 6 o'clock last year. Does anybody want to do anything different, or 6 o'clock sound okay?
And yes, Karen will be there.
I was gonna kind of even ask that.
I know, that's what you think here.
My last item is Heather Drain has finished her 1 year of probation as of March 2nd. So I request that she be given her 50-cent raise and taken on and put on to permanent status.
I move we give Heather a 50-cent raise and put her on permanent status.
I second.
We have a motion and second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Okay, any questions for city clerk?
Not for the clerk, but Greg, this will be your first time doing the budget. Don't hide 4 vehicles in the budget.
Because I will go
That
through
we'll
every line.
Find through later.
Maybe we should start
The
at
way I
5
do it is
o'clock.
different than Mike did. You'll have my request ahead of time.
Serious. But look what we found.
Do you think we should start earlier?
But that's okay, because I found money for sod from the cemetery, so.
Okay.
I think we should start at 5.
Do you guys want to start at 5 on the budget on the 11th?
The 11th of which?
April?
April. That's fine with me.
We'll do it 5.
We might be here all night.
All right, anything else under city clerk? Public Works Supervisor Greg Stump?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. last meeting, we talked about dry hydro and discussions with an employee of theirs. We did have a discussion with dry hydro. They're not gonna tell anybody anything until we have something definitive to actually say. They're all preliminary work right now. Not sure quite what happened, but he said they'll pay attention to that more. So, currently there is nothing in play as far as moving any of the facilities off the site. It's more of the remediation, collection of the water, and treatment of the water. So, I know in the past, some of the conversations were they would have to put a cap on the landfill number 1. But I don't think that's part of what is planned right now, and I don't know if they'll do that anyway. Speaking with Craig McComey with Wyoming BEQ, that's not necessary for what we're trying to do. So, cemetery committee, we met. I can either go through that now, or we can do it at standing committee reports.
You can do it.
What's that?
You can do it.
We did meet and discuss the master plan, and the committee wants to move forward with the master plan for the cemetery. I've spoken with the architects. They're going to come up with some conceptual drawings next. So, we also met and reviewed the proposed rule changes for the cemetery. I did forward those on to Dublin, and Dublin gave me an opinion today about that. So, we're probably ready to submit or present it to the rest of the council. So, next meeting, I believe we'll probably have that as a presentation for you. Concerning Cheyenne, I did go down to the SLID meeting. It came out fairly well. We actually ended up with 1 grant. We had two submitted, but only 1 was funded. The Duff Avenue sewer main and lift station replacement project did pass. We did get the full grant funding for that.
That's good news.
It's over $1 million. So.
Thank you.
Thank you, and thank Mark and Upton.
Yeah, a lot of that had to do with Superintendent Mark Lindstrom from Upton. He's been great for me to lean on and pick his brain and kind of ride his coattails. So it helped out a bunch. So you see him, tell him thanks. So, are there any questions about the other projects or the public works reports?
Is there any other place that we can get money for them other than this SLID place?
Yeah, we're working on it. There's some other stuff we can do. Most of it's low interest loans. We can get even loans for 0%, depending on what, anywhere from 0 to 2.5%. SRF funds, they're low interest loans. We can do it basically anywhere from 5 years to 25 years. So Mark's helping me learn the ropes of that, I guess you might say, and
Good.
come up with some ideas. So. One thing I did notice down there in talking with some of the SLID members, they're really in favor of plans, getting a capital improvements plan, stuff like that. There were 2 capital improvement plans that they authorized or awarded grants to, full funding for those. I think with our master plan, our cemetery master plan, we're heading down the same road. I think we probably need to move forward with doing a capital improvements master plan. SLID will help fund water, sewer, and storm sewer, primarily. That's all they'll pay for, but they do help pay for those type of plans so the city can plan ahead 10, 20 years out and come up with a list of what they want to do, what projects they want to do. We could add on to it with whatever company we go with, or whoever we decide to have do this master plan or capital improvements plan. And we could look at the streets, cemetery, parks, rec as well. We'd have to pay for that portion of it ourselves, but we couldn't do it all. and basically have a citywide master plan. So we're not trying to compete with it ourselves for grants. So if you're interested in that, I might pursue that more. So I know the governor was very, very interested in that.
This sounds like something to definitely prefer, or to pursue.
That's great.
Okay.
Any questions for Mr. Snow?
No, I just want to congratulate him again on going and advocating for the city and getting that grant. That was great.
Yes, sir.
I just have a comment really quick. I don't know where we're supposed to go with this anyway anymore, but I was reading Greg's report. I like the way you do this. Page 2D, and I don't know my Roman numerals anymore, but you go down halfway down or so, and it says dust on Gray Boulevard. I would invite any city person to drive down the one block of Sage Street during spring breakup and the spring rain. It is just red sludge, just sludge. And just look at my driveway. Drive by and look at my driveway or inside my garage. It is really bad. It ruins your shoes when you try to go for a walk. It just clings to your tires like pottery clay. It's awful. And I think you're going to work on that street anyway. And Mike told me one time that they were going to put more gravel in that and not so much of the red dust.
Yeah, no, we're actually waiting on material to show up for Sage Street. We received the culverts. We're waiting on the inlet boxes so we can do the project. Also, with street projects, if anybody wants to question me, they can come up by the city shop and see what.
Oh, is that okay to do that? Okay.
Wintertime projects and frost are not a time to do road projects.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't know if we could go there or not.
Yeah, no,
Okay.
we're planning on it. It's a matter of getting all the materials here. With concrete, with cement shortages, that's what's holding up that Gal Park bathroom project right now. That's what's holding up what's held up the soccer field and Sage Street. They just cannot generate it fast enough. So,
Thank you.
yeah, we do have plans to do something with it.
I'm just kind of trying to get a feeling, this is Walter Sprague, Newsletter Journal, on your opinion. And I know that the Heritage Park, it's really a little confusing. Where do you go to get the money? And bumping it up to the first priority, do you think that had any effect why only one of the projects got funded and not the other? Or did it have no effect in your opinion?
What it had an effect on was initially it kicked both our projects to non-eligible. When it went non-eligible, it then in turn made our other projects not funded, not recommended for funding. So it was kind of a catch-22. SLIB was not awarding two grants to any one community or one system.
Okay.
So City of Cheyenne, I think they had 5, if I remember right. And to speed up the process a little bit, knowing they weren't going to fund multiple projects, I even asked, or even recommended not to fund 7th Avenue if Duff Avenue was still a possibility. City of Cheyenne did the same thing. There were several other systems that did the exact same thing. So they weren't going to fund any one project. The state is really trying to spread the money out as far as they possibly can and effectively help as many communities as they can. So,
Thank you.
Yep.
And congratulations on getting that too, by the way.
Any other questions? Police Chief Bowles?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll go over the totals first. For dispatch, we've had 1,479 calls come into dispatch. And breaking those down, the PD's had 259 for the month. The Sheriff's Department has 202. Upton PD has had 60. Let's see, Newcastle Volunteer Fire is at 4. Weston County Fire is at 65. Upton is at 1. The Newcastle Ambulance is at 41. Upton Ambulance has had 9, and then we've had 2 with the city crew. Just a couple things. We are going to have the football team or in whatever other athletes they can generate to come and help us move on March 12th. So that would be everything except for dispatch. So we'll have all of the PD moved out at that time. I will be away at training from March 20th to the 24th in Douglas, and in my absence, Sergeant Thompson will be in charge of the PD.
I think that's all I got.
Any questions for Chief?
March 12th, what's the times that's going to happen?
We're shooting for 12 o'clock, so it's a Sunday. If we don't get everything moved, we'll get another day during the week, afternoon, and we'll get the rest of the stuff moved.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Standing committee reports, we already talked about the cemetery committee, unless there's something else that needs to be added. No? Okay. Any other business?
I would like to point out on the standing committees that going over NewcastleWyoming.org, the standing committees that are listed on that website are not people who are presently on them. And the city council that is listed there does not list me or Mr. Butts. And it just kind of needs, our website needs brought up to date.
I have to, what is that? Josh's name, because Mike Moore used to take care of speaking with the company that does our website. So they're giving me access so I can go in and start changing it and getting it updated, and because there's a lot of corrections that need to be done. So it's coming.
Okay.
But like I said, Mike Moore used to take care of that, and he's no longer here. But thank you. Do I have a motion to go to leave regular session to enter executive session for Wyoming Statute 16-4-405 APIII for gifts and donations, and 16-4-405 AII for personnel.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Okay, entering executive session at 8:36.